in the 1980s and 1990s. Singaporeans then were not very different compared to Singaporeans today. I start my speech with a look into Singapore's past because on nomination day, PAP Chairman Khaw Boon Wan said if the WP were in power and ministers had to resign or were sacked, it would be very troublesome for Singapore. When the minister said that, I remembered the Singapore I grew up in and the PAP politicians of those times. Older generations of Hougang voters will remember these PAP politicians, but many younger Singaporeans may not, and it is important for us not to forget the past. The first PAP politician I want to speak about is Wee Toon Boon, who was not only a former PAP MP, but also the Minister of State for the Environment. I don't remember him from my childhood, but I learnt about him from my undergraduate classes on corruption and public administration at the National University of Singapore. In April 1975, PAP MP and Minister Wee Toon Boon was charged for corruption involving about 800,000 Singapore dollars. He was convicted and sent to imprisonment for 18 months. I beg your pardon, sent to prison for 18 months. PAP Chairman Khaw Boon Wan is worried what would happen if a minister from the opposition resigned or is sacked. But Singapore has already seen a minister who had to resign. And which party was he from? He was from the PAP. In 1980, there was another PAP MP, Mr. Pei Yu Kok, who was president of NTUC from 1970 to 1979, about 9 years. What was his crime? He embezzled trade union funds. Jialui Teo. Pei Yu Kok stood for 2 elections on the PAP ticket, one in 1972 and one in 1976. And he won both in the single seat constituency of Boon Teck. Now I don't know where Boon Teck is, but I assume it is somewhere near Boon Teck Road. Although since we have Aljunied MRT station, Aljunied Crescent and Aljunied Industrial Estate, all not inside Aljunied GRC, I am not sure. But in 1980, Pei Yu Kok, the PAP rising star, disappeared into thin air. And until today, nobody knows where he is. The story of former NTUC President and PAP MP Pei Yu Kok struck me when I read Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's Facebook message 2 weeks ago when he announced the by-election in Hougang. Prime Minister Lee said both the WP and Mr. Yao have let down all those who voted for him. But if we follow the Prime Minister's logic, then I am sure we can say Pei Yu Kok and the PAP let down all Singaporeans as well. Voters of Hougang, human beings are sometimes quite unpredictable and can be quite complicated. Their experiences and desires in the course of their life can change them. And no amount of background checks can guarantee 100% that a politician is fit for public service. A bad investment, worry about your child's financial future, his education, a weakness for women and alcohol, all these can destroy a human being and destroy his sense of what is right and wrong and make upright men and women do the most unthinkable things. Even the PAP cannot guarantee a 100% foolproof selection process. Steve Tan. The third PAP personality I want to talk about is the third President of Singapore, Mr. Devan Nair, who was for almost 15 years also the Secretary General of the NTUC. He later became the PAP MP for Anson, but gave up his MP seat when he was by the PAP government to become the President of Singapore, the highest office of our country. President Devan Nair joined the PAP in 1954 when the PAP was formed. Now the main players in the PAP, including all the PAP Prime Ministers, would have known who Devan Nair was. His background must have been thoroughly scrutinized before he was selected to be President. But President Devan Nair had to resign in 1985, ostensibly because of his alcoholism. In 1986, another PAP Member of Parliament and a full minister, Teh Cheng Wan, was investigated for accepting 2 bribes totaling $1 million. One company paid the PAP minister $500,000 after he used his public position to help them retain a piece of land that was earmarked for acquisition by the government. Another company paid Mr. Teh Cheng Wan, the PAP MP and minister, $500,000 for helping them buy over a piece of state land that was set aside for private development. Then in 1999, the PAP MP for Jalan Besar, Mr. Chu Wee Kiang, was sent to jail for 2 weeks and fined $10,000 for issuing false invoices to help a family friend help cheat a financial company to secure a loan. After reading Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's Facebook message and listening to the PAP chairman's comments on nomination day, it became clear to me that Singaporeans cannot rely on the PAP to set the standard for politics in Singapore. Instead of taking an elevated approach and acknowledging that the Workers' Party did the right thing for the people of Hougang, the PAP leadership took the low road. And in doing so, they forgot that age-old saying, if you stay in a glass house, better don't throw stones. Voters of Hougang, especially the younger voters of Hougang, in my speech today, I have shown you how the ruling party seems to have forgotten its own history. Over the last 30 years, the PAP has had to face the reality of a full minister, a PAP appointed president, a minister of state, and another PAP MP, falling in the standards expected of politicians. The real question the PAP has shrewdly avoided to ask is how a responsible and respectable political party in Singapore that is accountable to the people, how should it deal when its MPs do these sort of things? We in the Workers' Party were clear that it was more important for us to put things right, no matter what the cost. And it is only fair that the people of Hougang get to choose the MP again. Pang Eng Huat is our candidate for this by-election, and I ask voters of Hougang to keep your faith and trust in him and in the Workers' Party. Like every election, this will be a very tough fight for the opposition and for the Workers' Party. Even though about 40% of Singaporeans voted against the PAP in the last elections, the PAP still has more than 90% of the seats in Parliament. This does not correspond with the will of Singaporeans. Voters of Hougang, we need your vote to ensure that the PAP does not grow even bigger in Parliament. Before I end my speech, I would like to say a few words about the voters of Hougang. I was 15 years old when you first voted Lau Tia Kiang as your Member of Parliament in 1991. Many people go through life wondering what they have done for Singapore after they have made their money or have a stable job. Many young people wonder what is the value of their life in a fast-paced country like Singapore. But what the voters of Hougang have done since 1991 is truly remarkable. You have listened to your conscience to ensure that we have a fairer and more just Singapore. You have rejected promises of multi-million dollar upgradings promised by the PAP and kept your head held up high. Because of you, the voters of Hougang, young Singaporeans like me, were able to step up, join the Workers' Party and play our part in making Singapore a better place for all Singaporeans. Voters of Hougang, I ask you to vote Panging Huat